John, when you were on the Yankee team, Yogi was around a lot. What kind of interaction did you have with him, and what did he mean to you?
Well, first of all, you mentioned Yogi and myself being Yankee catchers. You shouldn't even put us in the same sentence. But, we spent a lot of time in spring training together. Obviously, Yogi was one of the retired players who would spend a lot of time down there, pretty much all of spring training. He did a bunch of catching drills together every day. He was involved. And, during the season, he was the one guy who would always show up in the clubhouse. And, it was one of those things that, you knew how great he was. You knew the personality. But when you're around this man, he made you feel really comfortable, whether, you were another catcher or whether you were just part of the ball club. I've never been around a person who had that type of reputation, Hall of Famer, great Yankee. But when you were around him, he just made you feel like one of the guys.
Best advice he ever gave you?
Well, I don't know if he gave me great advice. He would talk a lot during the catching drills, and I always thought it was great that Gary Tuck, if he was a catching instructor, he would be running the drills, or Joe Girardi my last year. And they would ask Yogi's opinion when we were going over maybe throwing or blocking. And he always made it so simple. I think sometimes we overcomplicate things and we talk about mechanics, and Yogi would bring it back to its simplest form. So I think that's one of the things that I took away from our time together. And then, one of the moments, I think the first moment that I thought of today was my first year in '03. And we got back from a long road trip, and I think on that trip I had a good game or something like that. And I get to the clubhouse the first night of the homestand, and Yogi's waiting at my locker. And, he just said, "Kid, you had a nice game. Keep it going."
Wow.
And I will never forget that, because I was like, wow, this is Yogi Berra, who obviously, you knew what a great career and the Hall of Famer, like I mentioned. But he took the time out of his day. I know he was there to see other guys. I know he was there to see the game that night. But he stopped by my locker, a backup catcher, and let me know that he was paying attention. And that really meant a lot to me, and that was the first thing I thought about this morning.
What I've always noticed about, the players that are playing the game now, John, and when you were, an active player, sometimes if ex-players would come around, you'd occasionally see the eye roll. They didn't want to hear it. But everybody loved seeing Yogi. Nobody resented that Yogi was in their space. What was it about him that made him different?
Well, different is the first word. Michael, it's a comfort level, and I don't know how to explain it. I've been talking to people about it today. He's the one guy that you always felt comfortable about, you felt comfortable being around him. He never looked down on you. He kind of looked at you like you were on the same level, and obviously we all knew that we weren't, and we all respected everything about him and the way he carried himself. But when you were around him, he made you just feel so comfortable and such a part of it. And we all know, there are some Yankee greats who have had unbelievable careers, and there are times that they're going to let you know that, and you feel it. With Yogi, I never felt it. So it just felt like an old friend who was coming around to wish you well and, let you know he was paying attention, keep working hard, and everything's going to be all right.
14 World Series, won 10 of them. Goes to a World Series twice as a manager in Game 7. I guess winning can be contagious, right, John? I don't think it's an accident when somebody wins at that kind of clip and everywhere in every walk of life that he seemed to touch.
Yeah, the guy was golden. If he was around, they were going to win. If it was off the field, things were going to turn out the right way. And Don, one of the things when I was playing against the Yankees all those years, and they made it look easy with all the championships at the end of the '90s, and when you become part of the club, you realize how hard it is not only just to win a pennant, but to try to win a World Series. And then you try to put your mind and your brain around some of the numbers that are coming out today with all the World Series. I mean, the All-Star games, everything about this man and his career is just, you can't even put your brain around it. And then you hear a stat about all the double headers that this guy caught.
Right.
I mean, we have catchers nowadays, and I was guilty of it too when I was an everyday player. You don't catch a day game after a night game because you need some rest. And then you hear some of the numbers about catching double headers. Like I said, you can't even put your brain around it.
I've been asking everybody this, John, and you were in the room. You might know the answer as well. What was the deal with Yogi and Jeter? They seemed to click.
They seemed like they were family.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like to me from the outside looking in. you know this better than me, Michael, and I think you put it into context perfectly, that Derek a lot of times doesn't let everybody in. He's a very nice guy and will treat everybody, with respect and be very friendly. But Yogi and Derek had something different, and to cross generations like that, and Derek, I think it's the same way we all felt. He just felt very comfortable, very trusting, and it was fun to watch when those two guys were around each other. They would give each other a hard time, and they looked like family to me when I watched it.
Just the iconic stature of him and Jeter, they have that in common. But as you said, maybe don't have that as much outward goingness, and also to be able to come back to the stadium. Do you think Derek will ever maybe embrace that and realize that he may be at that level when he gets older, and that maybe fans would appreciate, and the players of the generations to come may appreciate if he became kind of their Yogi Berra?
Well, I hope so, Don. But I don't know. Derek's a little different personality, and I didn't know Yogi all that well. I talked to spring training during the season, and a bunch of conversations that we had. But Derek is a little bit different. He's a little bit more guarded, and Yogi just seemed very open and very friendly to whoever it was. In spring training, whether it was the media, people coming around to say hello, the players, minor leaguers, it didn't matter. It was just a very calm, soothing personality. And Derek, I think with today's day and age, is a little bit more guarded, and rightfully so.
John, thanks so much for your memories. We appreciate it.